This is Your World Today.
The time 6:49 Central African Time, Wednesday, July the 9th, 2008. My name is Ibrahim Musa, taking you through the motions on the show this evening. Now, it has been described as a bridge between the Islamic world and the West. An Israeli professor has authored a book and is planning a website that uses verses from the Noble Quran as a guide to address problems faced by educational counselors. To tell us more, I'm joined on the line by the professor himself, Professor Ofer Grossbard. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Hello, Ibrahim, and I would like to say welcome to all my Muslim brothers that listening to us.
Thank you very much for that, Professor. Now, QuranNet, this is the project that you are in charge of, a brand new development from your side. Tell us exactly what this project entails.
Okay, the main idea is that every person in the world can find a Quranic answer to his educational questions with his children, whether he is a teacher or a parent. And I think to understand this project, I would like to tell you how this project started, because this will put a light about all this issue. I'm a Jew, and I'm a clinical psychologist. And last year, here in Israel, I got a group of 15 Bedouin students for second degree in school counseling, and I was asked to teach them a course in developmental psychology, about adolescents, about children. And I started teaching them the regular stuff of Freud and things like this, the regular Western theories. And in the middle of the course, a nice student came to me, her name is Bushra, and told me, "Do you want me to tell you the truth, Professor?" I said, "Of course." She said, "Nothing of what you teach us will help us." I was very surprised. I asked her, "Bushra, why?" She said, "For me as a school counselor, a parent may come and tell me the devil got into my son, for example. So do you think that all this Western psychological bubble will help me? It won't help me." I looked at her and I asked her, "Bushra, what do you think may help?" And she answered me in just one word. She said, "The Quran." I didn't understand. I asked her to explain. And then she said, "Listen, if I say an ayah, a phrase from the Holy Quran to a parent, to a child, to someone, after this phrase, everything falls in place. No arguments, nothing." So next week, I decided to take the challenge, and I came with the Quran. And there are 30 chapters, 15 Bedouin Muslim religious students, most of them girls with head cover and things like this. And we divided the chapters, and I asked them to extract from every chapter the educational psychological phrases. And we discovered that there are many beautiful phrases, that one should take responsibility and not waiting for the other, to tell the truth, to respect your fellow brother or sister. And to every such an ayah, I asked them to write a short story that exemplify how a teacher or a parent may use this ayah in order to convey the child the message. I got 330 beautiful stories that I think only Bedouins knows how to tell. Very dramatic, colorful. The child did like this, and his friend hit him, and then the teacher came and said the ayah from the Quran, and everything falls in place. To every such a story, I added a very short and simple educational psychological explanation. And all this came out, was published by Ben Gurion University as a book, and 3 well-known sheikhs and imams wrote an introduction to it. And it works like a dictionary. You have a problem, your child doesn't do his homework, so you look at the content, you find the problem, then you find the right ayah that relates to it, and if you want, you'll have also a short story that exemplify how you can use this ayah, and also a very simple educational psychological explanation, which is the bridge to the West. So I say all the time, I taught them psychology, but they taught me the Quran, and they gave me beautiful present, because I went through a change, because I didn't know the Quran before I started teaching them. And they showed me the beauty of the Quran and its respect for human dignity, and for me it was an amazing experience.
Now, as you know, Professor, sorry for interrupting you there, Muslims do believe that the Holy Quran is the word of Almighty God. Do you, after going through this entire exercise, also share maybe that belief?
Look, I'm a Jew, I'm not a Muslim, but I deeply, deeply respect the Quran. I think it's something that really, I mean, something that you can't compare to nothing else. The way it relates to human relations. I mean, human relations is in the heart of the Quran, and it's so important. And the idea was to build a bridge. You know, my Muslim students now have the bridge to the West because they have, in addition to the ayah, also the psychological explanation, the Western psychological explanation. But this book, and it's not only a book, in a minute I'll say, but this book, it's important not less for the West in order to break down all the stereotypes about Islam or the prejudice. Because in this book you can see the beauty of the Quran. So it's a bidirectional bridge, and that's what's important. It's very important also to the West. So I'm a Jew, but I really, I mean, I love my students, my Muslim students, they love me, and both of us love the Quran.
Yes, and this project, you say, is not just for Muslims, it's for Jews, it's for Christians, it's for people of all faiths.
It's very important to emphasize it because we would like to really build a bridge, and the Western world should change its view about the Quran and about Muslims, no doubt about it. And now we are planning a website. All this story, just doing it in a website, in a few languages are spoken throughout the Muslim world, so any Muslim or non-Muslim parent or teacher may use it. You know, many Christians or Jews have Muslim students or Muslim neighbors. We are living in a multicultural world, and the most important thing now that I would like to say to our listeners that till now it came out as a book in Hebrew. And there were many talks in the world about all kind of conspiracy and things like this, you know, because people didn't see the material. So they spoke without seeing it and just, you know. So we would like very much to translate it into some languages and to put it on a website, but for this we need an investment, not big. So if one of our listeners would like to help us to promote this bridge, we need an investment in order to turn it to translate it into English, into Arabic, of course, into other languages, and put it for the whole world.
Absolutely. Now, Professor, tell me about when Muslim scholars would tell you to interpret the Quran. Only the learned Islamic scholars do such an activity, and they do this after years of learning and years of study. Some people would say you are not qualified enough to embark on such a project from an Islamic point of view.
That's absolutely right, but here is another misunderstanding because they didn't read the material. You know, I'm sorry to say it, but they speak, many of them speaking without even bringing one example because it's in Hebrew and they didn't read it. So my students are not interpreters of the Quran. They are just educators, not to speak about me, I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm not interpreter of the Quran. So what they do is like a father or a mother that reads the Quran to his child. Nothing more than that. If a father reads the Quran to his child, it doesn't make him interpreter of the Quran. If a teacher in the class uses a phrase from the Quran and ayah, it doesn't turn him to be interpreter of the Quran. We are not interpreters. We are modest. We are just educators.
All right, and the other question people would ask, does this project enjoy any sort of official sanction from the Israeli government or any authorities, any bodies associated with the Israeli government?
This is a very good question. So all these projects started between me and my students, my 15 Bedouin students, a year and 2 months ago. Then the book was published more or less in last April. Then on May, there was in Israel big competition of Shimon Peres. He's the president, and there was it is called the Presidential Conference. And Shimon Peres wanted to choose the 60 projects that will change the future. So many high-tech projects were chosen, and all kind of new medicines and energy problem solving and things like this. And our project, which is called QuranNet, was one of the projects that was chosen by Shimon Peres and this group to represent Israel in front of the whole world. So we presented this project in Jerusalem. It was on May. After we presented this project, a month later, Israel Foreign Ministry put it on its website. And that's the reason the whole world suddenly knew about it. But there is no connection to politics at all. This project started from my Bedouin students. It's their ideas, it's their initiative, it's not me. It's not politics. It's education, proper education, and it's the idea of my students, of this girl, Bushra, that came to me and told me, listen, professor, it won't help me.
Now,
what you teach.
As you know very well, Professor, there is a lot of suspicion between the Muslim world as well as Israel and the West when it comes to the issue of Palestine. And many people have lots of grievances against Israel because of what they see as its human rights abuses, the occupation of Palestinian lands. Now, when you are associated with something like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, on their website, looking at the page that you refer to, one sentence reads, "The Quran net reveals the beauty of the Quran and its respect for human dignity, thereby providing a resounding response to, now quote-unquote, warped exploitation of the Quran for the justification of terror." Now, when people read something like this, the first thing that comes to mind is, whatever your intentions are, the Israeli government is going to use this project as a means to try and justify or try and tell people that Palestinian resistance against what Palestinians see as Israeli human rights violations on them doesn't fit the Quran, doesn't fit the explanations of the Quran. So it seems as if it's being used, manipulated to serve a particular end.
Listen. First of all, one should see the material. If one sees the material, no conspiracy will come to his head, because the material is not politics at all. It is educational. It's about children. It's nothing politics here. Nothing. I'm sorry about this phrase about the terror. I think it's not a good phrase, and I agree with you. It's not a good phrase. I'm sorry about this phrase. Because every side see terror in a different way, and I agree with you. But I would like people to understand that, I'm sorry to say it, but many people in the Muslim world spoke about conspiracy without seeing the material. I told many times, I have some parts in English, so I'm ready to send those parts to those who, of course, don't read Hebrew. And I would like to share this project. I would like to with my Muslim brothers, and to do it together. It's as I did it with my Muslim students. So really, there is no connection to politics. And until you don't see it in your eyes, you will keep thinking about conspiracy.
And just a final question. We're running out of time, Professor. If the Israeli authorities use this to serve their own needs, wouldn't you have a problem with that? Because they are now using it. You say it's non-political, and they are now using it to serve a political purpose.
Look, they put it on its website, but they don't use it in any way. It's educational project. They can't use it. If they use it, I won't allow them to use it, but they don't try to use it because you can't use it. You know, it's a story about 8 years girl who her father died and she feels guilty, and then the ayah from the Quran helps her to resolve this psychological problem. So there's no politics at all in this story. That's what's amazing. No politics at all, and no one can turn it to politics because it's so a clearly educational issue. You understand? You should see it. I mean, I'll be willing to, as I told you, to share this project. We are looking for investors and to show the part I have in English. So no one can turn it to political issue. No one in the world. It's educational proper. And no one can, I mean, I think about my students, my Muslim students, they will be very sad to hear it. They are very sad when they did such a project and now they hear about conspiracy without seeing the material, for God's sake.
Absolutely.
Look at the material.
Thank you very much for that, Professor. That's Professor Ofer Grossbard. He's a clinical psychologist at the University of Haifa. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And people who want to check out the material can visit the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website of the State of Israel. Professor, thank you very much and have a good evening.
Or send me an email. And thank you to all my Muslim brothers.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Ofer Grossbard, clinical psychologist at the University of Haifa. If you need his email address, you can contact me, ebmoosa@ciinetwork.net, and I'll gladly forward it to you.
This is Your World Today.